Hello, listeners. Welcome to the Mooster Tech Podcast. This is episode number 22. 5G is slowing down your internet and you didn't know it. Hi, guys. Welcome back to the Mooster Tech Podcast. I've taken a hiatus break for 2 months at least now, and I'm happy to report that I'm back. You can see what I've been up to lately on my YouTube and other social channels. On with the show. I have tried a couple of 5G phones. Now, granted, most of these were on T-Mobile's network, and I have found that 5G has been mostly a miss and very little of a hit. Let me explain what's going on here. So, yesterday, I was over at Santa Ana, Westminster, parts of Orange County, and I noticed that my phone had full 5G coverage with full bars. Full bars on my Apple iPhone 12 Pro Max. It's got 4 bars all the way across, which means it's got a really, really good, strong signal. Now, usually I get excited about that because I remember recently in El Monte, California, I had 5G and I had about 2 bars and I was getting roughly 400 megabits per second up and down, roughly. All right. And so I needed the internet because we were doing some important online applications and video calls. And for whatever reason, everything kept disconnecting. So I had to go ahead and check, and I ran a speed test. The speed test results for 5G coverage on T-Mobile at 4 bars was 0.5 megabits per second down and 2.74 megabits per second up, with a ping time sometimes as high as 2,000 milliseconds and a jitter rate of up to 1,000 milliseconds. So overall, that's just a horrible, horrible bad connection. Now, my phone didn't know any better. I had it on auto 5G. That's a setting that you can have on the iPhone so that it will prefer 5G coverage when it detects it. So it automatically switched to 5G. So I thought, hey, maybe there's something wrong. Okay, so I turned off 5G and I forced 4G LTE. Then what happened is I did the same speed test, and here's the results I got. Let's see. I got 43 megabits per second down and about 30 megabits per second up. Sitting in the exact same area. And I thought, okay, well, let me try rebooting my phone. So I did that. I did a bunch of different things. I rebooted the phone, reset network settings, and shut down the phone completely, turned it back on. And sure enough, I did the same thing again and got the same, very similar results. Okay, switching between 5G and 4G. Now, why is that the case? It's mostly a marketing campaign. Some of you guys remember when 4G came out, they started calling a lot of 4G coverage everywhere, but then it turned out it was a lot slower than 3G was, if you guys even remember that. And then, of course, then 4G LTE came out, and now it's pretty mature overall for a lot of carriers. Well, what T-Mobile has been doing, as I'm sure a lot of other carriers are doing, is they're focusing on blanketing the entire area with 5G coverage. And they're doing it using a 600 megahertz low band signal. So I'm reading this from 5G fact sheet from T-Mobile. They say 5G on 600 megahertz, T-Mobile's farthest reaching signal. The Un-carrier's strongest, most powerful signal reaches farther than other spectrum to bring 5G to people in nearly 6,000 cities and towns, including those in rural America. And it brings 5G deep into buildings. T-Mobile has fresh 600 megahertz spectrum dedicated to 5G. Only the Un-carrier, which is what they call themselves, is capable of delivering nationwide 5G without taking spectrum away from other customers. Right, that's pretty special. And if you look at the map, the 5G coverage exceeds what 4G was capable of, exceeds what 4G LTE was capable of. I'll just have this in the thumbnails, or I'll have a link down below this in the show notes. So you can see they're just basically blanketing every area. It is really reaching very far into buildings and areas where normally regular 4G bands, 4G LTE bands would not be able to cover. So, that's great because it shows that you have all this coverage and you got full band. The problem is that you can't really use it as exemplified in many cases if you're just trying to access just basic internet stuff. 0.5, 0.3 megabits per second download speeds is something that might have been acceptable way back when most people were on dial-up internet. Now, that is ridiculously slow. I'd almost prefer the old school 3G versus this. But of course, the only way to rectify that is for the phone to force it to only connect to 5G 2.5 gigahertz. That's the one that you want. That's the one with the depth and the speed that can get up to ridiculously high speeds, and that is at the 2.5 gigahertz spectrum. So 2.5 gigahertz spectrum, and also accordingly on T-Mobile network, they also have a 312 megahertz of mid and low band spectrum nationwide. That's the one that I would like to choose from. Unfortunately, at this time, iPhone doesn't support that unless perhaps it's jailbroken and you have a little hack that forces it otherwise. So for those of you guys that are traveling a lot, just turn off 5G. This way you don't have the headache of worrying about whether or not you're getting signal, and also 5G uses up more battery power as well, so you'll get better battery life. Just stick to 4G LTE for now until we get much better coverage everywhere. Because that pretty much ruined what I had set out to do the other day, thinking that I had good solid speeds and then messing up the entire session and then putting us back in line waiting to reconnect with a customer service representative. And that just absolutely ruined it. So one other lesson to learn here is before you get started on that, just don't presume that you're getting a decent enough speed. Check out, just do a quick little speed test. You can download that free app anywhere on the Android, your PC, iOS. Make sure you check it out. Don't believe what your cell phone tells you, particularly on 5G. That's it for this episode. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll catch you next one.